2023 was dubbed the year of Sanderson, mostly because of his secret project, but I also decided to make it the year of Sanderson for myself, and I dedicated this year to reading through the entire Cosmere, and I am getting very, very close to accomplishing that goal, which is approximately 4 million words. I don't actually know the books off the top of my head, but I did look up the word count, and it is somewhere in the realm of about 4 million words, which is crazy to think of. But with that journey coming to an end, it's time to look forward and pick out my next series that is too long, and I have a couple different options, but I would also love to know any options that I leave off this list, maybe some things I haven't heard of, or what you think about some of the options I have gathered. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But with that being said, let's go ahead and look at some of the options I have picked out for 2024. So the first series I thought about reading is Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is an extremely popular fantasy series written by Steven Erikson. I know there is more to the world than just the Book of the Fallen. There's also some companion stuff written by what's his name? Esselmont? I don't know his first name off the top of my head, but the Malazan Book of the Fallen is a 10-book series that is approximately 3.3 million words. And part of the reason why I want to read this is this has been described to me as the best fantasy series of all time. So many other people on BookTube that I know and I really appreciate their thoughts and opinions on books have this as their #1 series, and the last book in the series, The Cripple God, being their absolute favorite book of all time. So part of me definitely wants to read that series. I also already own the first book, Garden of the Moons, so that also helps, bump this up the list that I already have some of the books. Now, some of the cons for this is it is always described as being very, very complicated, and I'll be honest, that doesn't bother me, but sometimes I just want something lighter, and having to dedicate this much time to a series that is known for being complicated, where there are like resources to help you understand chapters of the book, is a little daunting to me. And, part of me is like, maybe I just won't get it. It is kind of one of the series, but that is something that is keeping me away from, picking this series up for next year. Another extremely popular book series is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I have not read this series at all, and it is 16 books and almost 4 million words. I think it's like 3.9 million words. One thing that makes me very interested in this series is, once again, so many people talk about it so highly, and the fact that you kind of follow characters through like their whole life is something that is very appealing to me. Another appealing part is that this is broken up into mostly trilogies. I think there's one 4-book section in there, but the fact that I could maybe break it up into trilogies makes it a little bit more palatable, probably a little bit easier to read, probably a little bit easier to review, because they're already sectioned off the portions of the series, and I think that's a positive for it. Now, one of the reasons why I don't want to read it is because I have heard some mixed feelings about different parts of those trilogies. I've heard pretty much unanimous glowing praise for The Last Ship Traders. I've heard mixed things about the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy. I've heard pretty mixed to negative on the Dragon books. I can't remember what that 4-section book is called. And so, it's like, how much of it is really good, and then how much you just kind of have to slog through. And I've been told that you don't actually have to read it all for it all to make sense, but I'm kind of a completionist, so if I'm going to read it, I'm going to start from the beginning and make my whole way through, unless I DNF the whole series. I won't DNF a book, but the whole series, that could happen. So that is one of the things that I am kind of afraid of, that, are the highs really high and the lows are really low, or, what is that like? So let me know down in the comments. Next up is absolutely the longest series I'm going to have on this list, and this is technically a web serial. It is getting published into sections for books. I don't know exactly how many there's going to be, but this is absolutely the longest series. I mean, it is like ridiculously long, and that is The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. I first heard about this series from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews. He actually just did an amazing interview with the author. If you have any interest in the series whatsoever, and even if you don't, you should go watch that interview. It is one of the best things with voice acting and everything in it. It's fantastic. But just for reference, the first 9 volumes of this series are 12 million words. 12 million words. And that is probably the biggest negative I have for it, is that it's so long, it's still ongoing, and that so much is being published that I almost don't see an end in sight. And this is more than like a year commitment. This is probably the rest of my life commitment with how much is being written. It's also in a genre I'm not super familiar with. It's kind of like a lit RPG kind of story. I don't know exactly, but I've only read one other book like that, and I liked it. It was fine, but committing to a series where I'm not sure if like the main magic plot, whatever you want to call it, behind that lit RPG aspect of it, not knowing how much I'm going to enjoy that definitely does scare me a little bit. Yes, I could just read the first book and kind of find out, but you know, even the first book is like a 40-hour audiobook or something ridiculous like that. It is an extremely long book, and it, you know, is a huge commitment. Now, part of it is if I do like it, how much great content is that for myself? How much enjoyment can I get out of a series where there is just so much going on? And pretty much any other reviewer I have seen talk about this series has only had positive things to say about it, which is another huge positive for me. You know, these are people's opinions who I value highly, and that's why I watch them. And the fact that they talk so, you know, not just enthusiastic about it, but they're just like, this is the best thing ever, makes me want to read it. But once again, it is so long. We will follow the longest series up with the shortest one, and that is the Cradle books by Will White. I think this comes in at just around 750,000 words, so definitely a lot shorter than you know, The Wandering Inn. And this is actually a series where I own all of the books already, so huge positive there. This is also kind of a progression fantasy story. I have only read one of those also in the past, and I've heard that maybe this series starts a little bit slower, and that, you know, once you get into it, the more and more you go, the books get better. I've only read one other book by Will White, and that was The Captain. I think The Engineer, the second book in that series, comes out soon. But I liked that book. I enjoyed it. I liked the writing style. It was fast-paced, witty, all those kinds of things, which makes me think that I will like Cradle. I've also heard pretty much positive things. I know I saw some people didn't like the ending of this as much, but, you know, and it can be very subjective when it comes to how much you do or don't like it. So this is just another one. The fact that it is so short is kind of a positive. It seems like, because I am also going to read other long, you know, like trilogies and stuff throughout the year, this being like my long running series, there's 12 of them, that's like one a month, real easy to do. It might be really good for me to get through it that way. The next series has the most books in it, and that is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. It has like 3-ish million words, but, you know, 41 books. So there's a lot to read there. One positive for this series is a lot of this can be read as standalones, which is nice because I don't have to commit to reading all 41 of these. I can kind of pick and choose ones that I will like. Now, this is going to be probably kind of controversial, but I'm not sure the humor is going to work for me in this series. I've been told that this kind of absurdist humor that is in it is somewhat similar to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a book I did not really like. The humor in that book just didn't work for me. Maybe I'm just a stiff and it just didn't work, but I did not really find any enjoyment out of that book, and I'm afraid that some of the humor in these Terry Pratchett Discworld books just isn't going to work for me, and that's going to be missing a large piece of the charm that comes from these books. Now, I know there's a lot of different, sub-series and everything that go in here. And so maybe I could find some that I like and maybe not commit to all 41 books, which I probably wouldn't do anyway. But, maybe there are a couple sub-series that I can commit to that maybe they don't lean so heavily on the humor and being witty and stuff. But, I've heard there is a lot of different like political commentaries in some of them, and, just different views on the world and just kind of all kinds of different things. So I kind of have mixed feelings about what I think I would like out of Discworld, but, I would definitely take some recommendations for it. Next up is a series I have already started, and I'm putting this on the list because I could make it more of a priority. Right now, I really treat it as a mood read series for me, and that is the Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts. I'm currently on book 3. I haven't started it just yet. I'm hoping this month that maybe I can, start making my way through it. This has been a long-running series on my channel. Book 2, it took me almost a year to read. I think I made a video on it. It was like 275 days or something it took me to finish book 2 because for me, the way it is written is very difficult. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes the writing is just harder, and the fact that there are no audiobooks definitely make it more difficult for me. I'm a big fan of audiobooks. It works very well for me. So actually having to sit and read this series makes that harder, one, time-wise, and just physically reading is more difficult for me. But this is a series that I have already started. It's a series that I am very slowly starting to really, really like. Book 2 really kind of got its claws into me, and I really think that the more I read from the series, the more I'm going to, enjoy it. But I don't know if it's a series I can commit to reading at least one a month. I just think that because of the way it's written, the flow of the story, that I definitely need a little bit more time in between books to really enjoy it. I don't want to rush it to the point that it's not fun anymore, because reading is supposed to be fun. The War of Light and Shadows series by Jenny Wirtz is supposed to be 11 books. I think the 11th book is supposed to come out in 2024, and that series is somewhere in the 2.6 to like 3 million word range, somewhere in there. I couldn't actually really find an exact number, so if anybody knows, definitely let me know, but it is somewhere in that range. So it is definitely a long series, and it's broken up kind of differently as well. They kind of have like arcs and sub arcs inside of them. It's kind of cool. If you ever look at the Wikipedia, it has all that information in there. And now let's move to the last fantasy series. I do have 2 science fiction series listed on here as well, but the final fantasy series I have is the Powder Mage by Brian McCullen. I think it's 2 trilogies, so 6 books total, and it is just about 1 million words. Now, one reason I kind of want to read this is I've never read a fantasy like this, the Flintlock fantasy, so I really think that the magic in it is going to be very interesting for me, and just seeing something I haven't seen before is always cool. Now, part of the reason I am a little hesitant to read it is I've heard that the first trilogy is really, really good, and that the second one maybe isn't worth it. And if that's the case, maybe I do just read that first trilogy and forget about the second one. But also, I'm also worried that maybe the magic system won't work for me, that it being such a niche kind of fantasy, maybe it just won't work. And I'm curious to find out. I've heard mostly good things, so it's just kind of one of those series that I'm on the fence about. So the first sci-fi series I want to mention is Red Rising. I think Lightbringer, is that the book that just came out recently? A lot of hype around it when it came out, and I like science fiction series. I just finished The Expanse this year, so I could replace that with this. I've heard that it kind of starts out in a Hunger Game-esque kind of setting, and then progresses from there. I think there's going to be 7 books planned, but I think right now it's just the 6, and it's sitting at somewhere around 1 million words. Like I said, this is another series that I just kind of got wrapped up in the hype for it, and everyone was so excited, at least where I am and what I watch on YouTube, that I feel like I'm missing out, and part of me really kind of wants to get it. I actually looked back on my wish list, and this is a series I have had wish list for a super long time, and I don't know why I haven't really got around to it. I think part of it is that I don't know if I really want to read a Hunger Games-ish kind of story. I don't know. I know I've heard that it progresses so much from that maybe if I just kind of struggle through Red Rising itself and get to, I think it's Iron Gold or whatever, or I think that's the next one, that, maybe I'll enjoy the series more and more. And just with all the hype that was going around it, I find it hard to believe that I wouldn't enjoy it. And the last series I'm going to mention today is the Culture series by Ian M. Banks. It is like a 9-book series that is about 1.3 million words. This is a post-scarcity, science fiction story where faster than light speed travel is possible, and that's really all I know about it. I actually don't know too much about it. I know it lasted for he started writing in the 80s and it finished in the early 2010s. So this is a book series that spanned a long time, and I've heard really good things about it from the science fiction community, and I've also heard really negative things about it. So it's another one of those where I get it from both sides, and it's kind of one of those ones where I think maybe if I read the first one, I would know pretty quickly if I was in or out, but I would love to hear anybody who has read the Culture series if they think it's worth it in the comments below. But those are some of the series I am considering starting in 2024 to kind of be my focal point for the year, like I did for the Cosmere this year. So once again, if you have any thoughts, other series that I should consider, definitely let me know down in the comments. I'm always open to suggestions. Try to sell me on something. It'll be a lot of fun to see what you guys think I should read. But as always, have a good one.